I owe a public apology to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to my brother William, and to my father, His Majesty, the King. Before this marriage, I trusted my family. I lost myself, let old wounds blind me, and judged everything wrongly.
It was the sentence that froze the entire nation in place. As of this moment, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle hold no royal honour, no privilege, no recognition, full stop. The Crown, the statement declared, must be protected from those who seek to exploit it for personal gain and public leverage. With those 25 cold, deliberate words, King Charles III detonated the most shocking royal declaration of the century. Nothing in the darkest chapters of Windsor drama had prepared the British public for this. This was not a gentle step back. This was not a diplomatic reshaping of duties. This was complete severance, and burning beneath it was a fury that had clearly been building for years. The public had rarely seen the king for months. Palace insiders whispered that Charles had grown worn down, drained by what they privately called the Sussex Circus. But no one believed he would go this far or speak with such cutting precision in a televised address broadcast across the UK and the Commonwealth. His tone was not sorrowful. It was not paternal. It was firm, deliberate, and unmistakably angry. Every word landed with force. Charles accused Meghan of systematic manipulation, of treating Harry like a walking handbag of royal prestige, using his birthright as a ladder into Hollywood's elite circles. He described her behaviour as a stain upon the dignity of the monarchy, a phrase so severe that historians immediately compared it to language once reserved for Edward V. That comparison alone sent shockwaves through royal watchers. Then came his condemnation of Harry, not subtle, not coded, not softened by fatherly concern. Charles declared that his younger son had become reckless, easily influenced, and blind to exploitation. A man who abandoned gratitude for spectacle, family for attention, and duty for applause. Behind the king's composed delivery was a message no one could miss. Enough is enough. Tension had simmered for years, but sources say the breaking point arrived at a star-studded Hollywood gathering, Kris Jenner's 70th birthday, a spectacle dripping with wealth, power, and the kind of social currency Meghan craved long before she ever met Harry. Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, media moguls, Silicon Valley titans, actors, executives, billionaires, all in one room. According to Palace insiders, this was exactly the environment Meghan had been chasing. But what followed ignited the king's wrath. Multiple attendees reported that Meghan demanded edited photos of herself and Harry be removed from social media, citing release forms and contractual rights that hosts insist never existed. Staff were embarrassed. They pushed back. No such agreements had been made. Hollywood laughed it off. The palace did not. The optics were brutal. A former duchess allegedly policing images at a party she was barely invited to, asserting royal-level authority she no longer held. The entitlement echoed across tabloids and diplomatic circles alike, and for Charles, it landed as humiliation. This was a king who had spent decades modernizing the monarchy, protecting its dignity, defending its relevance. To him, this moment confirmed what he had long feared. That Meghan had never understood nor respected the institution she married into. Yet the fatal blow didn't come from Meghan. It came from Harry himself. While Prince William was representing the Crown at a major climate conference in Brazil, Harry appeared unexpectedly in Canada. When questioned, he insisted he had cleared the trip with the palace. The palace had no record. Not an email, not a briefing, not a message. Not a single entry in the king's official travel log. This was not confusion. It was misrepresentation. Then it got worse. Meghan's camp released a statement claiming Harry was independent, free, and did not require permission from royal advisors. To palace officials, this was the core issue. They believed Meghan had spent years convincing Harry he was above the rules that governed every other Windsor. This wasn't independence. This was insubordination behind closed doors. The king reportedly told aides, "Meghan treats my son like a carrier bag of royal prestige. She will not use my family's name as her accessory." The room fell silent. It was the harshest private comment ever recorded from Charles about his daughter-in-law. Then came the line that shaped everything that followed. Harry has allowed this, and so now the cost is his. Insiders say this was the exact moment Charles made his final decision. remove all remaining honours from Harry, not as revenge, but to prevent Meghan from exploiting them ever again. As the Sussex chaos spiralled, one figure stood in sharp contrast: Prince William. Charles reportedly recounted a story that stunned even seasoned royal watchers. Years earlier, William had won a legal case against a major newspaper. Instead of keeping the compensation, he donated every penny to charity, including to the Invictus Games, Harry's own project. Harry never publicly thanked him. Not once. To the king, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. One brother quietly served, the other loudly unravelled. And in Charles's view, Meghan had encouraged the destruction every step of the way. On the evening of November 6th, King Charles III exited the private chambers of Buckingham Palace. His senior aides knew what was coming. No metaphors, no soft language, no family interventions. This time, the king was going to act, and that act would echo through history. What began as a brewing scandal was now treated as a constitutional emergency. Over the next 72 hours, a secret team of strategists, lawyers, and royal courtiers launched what one insider described as a surgical operation of symbolic exile. The stakes were not just Harry and Meghan's reputations, it was the survival of the firm itself. That night, the king summoned only 3 people to his private study: Lord Chamberlain Andrew Parker, the quiet enforcer of royal precedent, Sir Clive Alderton, his trusted private secretary, and a seasoned communications strategist known as the Fixer from the Camilla era. They did not sit, they stood. Once everything was reviewed, Charles said, "All styles, all privileges. I want it done before the weekend." This was not symbolic. This was the most drastic internal reshaping of royal titles since the abdication of Edward VIII in 1936. But unlike that painful retreat, Charles's decision was designed to project strength, not sorrow. Sir Clive Alderton led the charge. Yes, Harry and Meghan had stepped back in 2020, but they retained key symbols: the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles, stylised HRH references, patronage claims, and international influence tied to royal branding. Charles wanted zero ambiguity. The goal wasn't punishment, it was protection of the institution. Sir Clive made it clear, if they are not royal, they must not sound royal, act royal, or trade royal. Documents were pulled, historical cases reviewed. Even the late Queen's letters patent were examined within 48 hours. The strategy was ruthless and precise. Strip Harry and Meghan of the right to use the Sussex title in any commercial or charitable venture. Remove all UK-based styles from internal court and Commonwealth communications. Meghan Markle was no longer to be introduced or treated as royalty in any official context. From Crown-sponsored websites to grants, a complete communications lockdown was ordered. No comment, no elaboration, no apology. It had to look clean, cold, and final. Simon Enfield's role was simple and uncompromising: control the narrative before Meghan and Harry could spin it. He prepared meticulously for every press scenario, anticipating just how explosive the fallout could be. Plans ranged from complete silence for 48 hours to strategic messaging emphasizing institution over individuals. The crown first, values over personalities. William's role was clear: highlight the Prince of Wales, show quiet dignity, preemptive sympathy. Archival photos of Charles with young Harry were released, a subtle reminder of the king's patience, his care, his history with his son. But Charles had one personal request. "I want people to know," he said, "this wasn't done out of hatred, it was done to save what we all serve." Still, beneath the calm, the fury hadn't faded. Insiders recall a closed-door meeting where Charles described Meghan as the most destabilizing woman to enter the family in a generation. He added flatly, "She is not my daughter-in-law, not anymore." Throughout the chaos, one figure stayed publicly silent but wielded influence behind the scenes: Prince William. Sources confirm that he supported the king's decision without hesitation. He had long believed the monarchy's future couldn't shoulder the weight of Harry and Meghan's drama. Privately, he made one request: do not include personal attacks on Harry. "Don't kick him when he's down," William reportedly told Simon Enfield. "Just close the door." His only visible move came 2 days later at a charity event in East London, smiling, poised, refusing all press questions. A subtle but unmistakable signal: we move forward. While strategists and lawyers fine-tuned the language of the decree, others worked quietly on the practical fallout. Harry's coat of arms was removed from ceremonial documents. Key protocols were reviewed, particularly concerning Harry's future visits to UK properties. Meghan's name vanished from the digital registry of royal affiliation. Slips addressed to the Duchess of Sussex were corrected. Palace corridors updated. Aides described the atmosphere as surgical, tightened, eerily quiet. One staffer who had served under 3 monarchs said, "We've had scandals, divorces, controversies, but this feels like a permanent rewrite of the royal code." On the morning of November 10th at 6 a.m, Charles rose early to review the final documents with Sir Clive before signing the royal decree. It revoked all remaining privileges from Harry and Meghan. The decree was short, direct, almost emotionless, marked with a single signature. 2 names vanished from the royal ledger. When the King's declaration aired globally, it detonated like a controlled demolition, surgical yet seismic within minutes. World headlines abandoned diplomacy, leaning fully into shock. But the real firestorm erupted within palace gates and online. It ignited the digital battlefield where Meghan's defenders and detractors had been waiting. This wasn't just another scandal. It was a global recalibration of the royal narrative, a collision of fame and monarchy, where silence screamed louder than words. The first wave of reaction came fast, hashtags trending on X, formerly Twitter, capital-lettered outrage, viral posts accusing the palace of character assassination and even racist retaliation. Influencers compared Charles's language to the rigid monarchy of the 1950s and framed Meghan as a modern woman punished for independence. But in the UK, and much of the Commonwealth, public sentiment leaned another way. A UK government flash poll the morning after showed 78% of respondents agreed with removing remaining royal honours from Harry, 66% including Meghan in the measure. Canada, Australia and Jamaica were more divided, but most cited confusion around the Sussexes' titles and actions. London tabloids were merciless. The tone in the palace was unmistakable. Aides said William supported the king without hesitation. Prince Edward described the moment as long overdue. Queen Camilla reportedly urged caution, wary that the palace appear vindictive. A senior staffer explained, she knew Meghan would turn this into media fodder, but Charles had stopped caring about optics. One aide recalled him saying quietly after the broadcast, "She turned my son into a slogan. That's not family, that's branding." When King Charles III signed the royal order stripping Harry and Meghan of their final privileges, it marked the culmination of years of grief, restraint, and unspoken bitterness. This was not just a political move. It was, in many ways, the act of a father who had finally reached his limit. Decades of bearing image, duty, and obligation could not shield him from disappointment. Behind the constitutional formality, something deeper boiled. Frustration, not only in a son, but at what that son had become. Memories of Harry as a boy fueled that fire. He had been Charles's wild card, his spark, a reminder that royal life could still laugh after the death of Diana. Charles worked awkwardly to hold his sons together. Friends recall desperate attempts to bridge the emotional gulf. "He never knew how to show it," said one aide, but he loved Harry deeply, admired his spirit. Even as an adult, Charles covered for him, from Las Vegas photos to tablet outbursts. The palace media team moved mountains to shield him. Charles insiders say he always believed Harry would eventually return to the fold. That belief held until Meghan. Though he never said it publicly, Charles reportedly viewed Meghan with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. She dazzled crowds, delivered polished speeches, but behind closed doors, Charles warned staff, "She plays the game, but she's playing her own version." What troubled him wasn't her background or heritage, it was her branding. Every move was media calibrated, said a former press secretary. She wasn't adapting to the crown, she was adapting the crown to herself. Over time, Charles came to believe Meghan had turned Harry into a projection of her own ambitions, a walking, talking logo for her vision of royalty. What enraged him most was seeing Harry paraded through Hollywood galas as a prince while simultaneously criticizing the institution that gave him that title. "He's not a man to her," Charles reportedly told aides. "He's a brand extension." Charles's inner circle compiled a private dossier of moments that fueled the final decision. Times Harry overstepped, contradicted the family, or remained silent while others attacked them. The Oprah interview where he didn't defend Charles, the Netflix docuseries exposing palace grounds, the Harry and Meghan podcast airing grievances, public speeches criticising the monarchy abroad. But above all, it was what Harry didn't do that cut deepest. He never said thank you. One courtier revealed that when Charles walked Meghan down the aisle or shielded them from press fallout, Harry never acknowledged it. When William donated to Invictus behind the scenes, Harry never stood up publicly to thank him. The king's heartbreak deepened as the rift between his sons grew into something unrecognisable. Where Harry had grown louder, William had grown quieter. William tried privately, notes, meetings without staff, but Meghan's team blocked direct contact, insisting all communication go through representatives. By the time Harry published revealing details of intimate fights and accused William of physical aggression, the future king had stopped responding. Charles was devastated, not only by the content, but by the implication that Harry saw the monarchy not as a legacy, but as a source of trauma. The final blow, insiders say, came when Charles learned of William's quiet donations to the Invictus Games, Harry's own initiative, after a press settlement that William refused to publicise. When Harry failed to acknowledge it even once, Charles reportedly muttered, "There is no honour left in him." The unapproved trip to Canada wasn't just a breach of protocol, it was a constitutional provocation. Harry, still publicly styled as the Duke of Sussex, appeared at events where he was introduced with royal titles and formal styling. He posed for photos beneath banners implying royal patronage. Local press ran headlines reading, "Prince Harry returns to serve Commonwealth." The palace had approved no such language. Charles's Foreign Office liaison reportedly fielded 3 separate calls from diplomats in the region, each asking variations of the same question. Is Prince Harry acting on your behalf or not? The answer was humiliatingly clear: no. The day after the Canada incident, Charles reportedly told his closest aide, "I let him go. I didn't expect him to come back with a flag." He was referring to Harry seemingly representing the royal family abroad while simultaneously distancing himself from it. A senior royal courtier revealed that Charles felt mocked, misrepresented, and cornered. He wasn't just hurt, he was angry. And when Charles gets angry, he doesn't raise his voice. He writes, "The writing came in the form of a historic statement and an official royal order stripping Harry and Meghan of any remaining honours, language or recognition that could imply royal endorsement." By the time the speech was delivered, Charles had made peace with the cost. There would be media blowback, public pain, and silence from Harry. But the king had decided he was no longer acting as a father. He was acting as the crown. That night, he reportedly paused at the Queen's portrait in the blue drawing room and said aloud, "Mummy, forgive me, but the boy you loved no longer walks with us." When King Charles III stripped Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of every last vestige of royal privilege, it wasn't just personal, it was institutional. This was a seismic act of monarchy, a calculated attempt to salvage legacy, hierarchy, and national symbolism. In an age where monarchy faces existential scrutiny, Charles's dramatic declaration was meant to restore clarity, but what followed was far more complex, a total recalibration of how the monarchy is seen, structured, and wielded in the modern world. For years, royal analysts speculated Charles wanted to streamline the monarchy, smaller, more agile, focused on duty rather than pageantry. That theory became reality after the Sussex severance. Within days, 3 major steps were quietly implemented. All secondary patronages held by minor royals were reviewed for public relevance. Future sovereign grant funding was frozen for lesser royals without active public roles. A confidential audit of royal engagements evaluated public reception, media value, and generational interest. Sources inside the palace revealed that Charles had given new orders: purpose over presence, relevance over tradition. It was a subtle warning to the entire Windsor machine: no one is untouchable. In the void left by Harry and Meghan, the Prince and Princess of Wales emerged as the monarchy's new emotional and visual anchor. William, once cast as the cautious heir, is now seen as the Crown's quiet command, resilient and steadfast in crisis. Catherine, meanwhile, has become the monarchy's strongest moral brander, modern yet restrained, never needing a microphone to hold public trust. Since the announcement, William's appearances exude gravitas. Youth mental health summits, environmental innovation centres, diplomatic receptions all imbued with subtle symbolism. His Earthshot Prize initiative, once a personal project, now functions as a royal flagship. Catherine's work on early childhood education and mental health, already admired, has been amplified by the public's craving for stability. One Times columnist called her the monarchy's answer to First Lady diplomacy. Together, they form a recalibrated future, traditional yet increasingly mission-driven. Despite the formal tone of Charles's statement, the battle for public opinion shifted online, fierce, unfiltered, algorithmic. Social platforms became instant referendums on the monarchy's relevance. On TikTok, Gen Z creators posted videos criticizing Charles's speech as outdated moral grandstanding. On YouTube, right-leaning commentators praised the king for defending the institution. Instagram was split. Some supported Meghan, others celebrated Catherine's grace. Hashtags evolved into factions. Royal news became tribal. Every image, absence, and headline litigated in real time. Control was no longer centralized. Even as Charles reasserted authority, the public reasserted its independence. Though Harry and Meghan were officially erased from royal records, their impact lingered like smoke after fire. By removing them, Charles inadvertently validated their centrality to the ongoing narrative. Every appearance they made, at tech summits, red carpets, or press events, sparked questions. Are they rogue royals, public celebrities, or private citizens, victims of palace cruelty, or architects of their own downfall? The truth is murky, and that murkiness continues to distract from Charles's original goal, clarity. The risk now is that the monarchy's act of purification will be remembered less for discipline and more for drama. Polls in the UK suggested the purge increased short-term trust in the institution. A post-announcement survey showed 63% of Britons supported the total severance of Harry's ties. 71% backed stricter standards for royal branding, but only 41% of those under 30 felt the monarchy was relevant to their lives. The purge shored up tradition, but did little to restore generational connection. Worse, some argue the palace missed an opportunity to humanize the conflict rather than doubling down on distance. It looked decisive, but as royal commentator Fiona Lichfield said, it also looked like a father executing his son in full view of the world. Internationally, the monarchy faces a paradox. Commonwealth nations, particularly those pushing for independence, are watching closely. In Jamaica, the purge was welcomed as overdue discipline, with headlines questioning if they could exile their own. In Australia, Republican movements gained momentum, citing the purge as proof of the monarchy's unforgiving nature. In Canada, debates over tradition versus modernisation intensified as the Sussex fallout became a global measuring stick. Columnists questioned whether Charles's tone had permanently tainted the Windsor brand among moderate monarchists. What was meant to protect the crown may have, in some corners, exposed its brittleness. Charles's vision is now crystal clear. The monarchy must survive through responsibility, not lineage alone. But that requires more than just pruning the family tree. It demands growing something new. Transparency, soft power, modern communication, and an ethical code of public service that can withstand both centuries of tradition and the lightning pace of TikTok. The challenge ahead isn't just succession, it's relevance. As one senior royal source put it, the crown has drawn the line, but the public will decide whether it still matters. In the weeks following the king's unprecedented announcement, the monarchy entered a strange, silent phase, suspended between restoration and reinvention. Headlines are cooling. The royal calendar marches on, yet beneath the surface, a deeper transformation is quietly taking shape. The monarchy is no longer defending its past. It is building its post-Harry, post-Meghan identity. King Charles may still wear the crown, but the emotional leadership of the monarchy has shifted. Every photograph, every public appearance, every carefully staged initiative now signals that Prince William and Princess Catherine embody the institution's public soul. They provide a stark contrast to the Sussex chaos, the calm after the family storm. The continuity the crown now depends on is theirs to uphold. William, especially, is entering a new phase, not just heir, but guardian of a purified Windsor brand. After years of cautious restraint, he is now the unofficial gatekeeper of royal dignity. Catherine, with her unbroken record of grace, is no longer just admired. She is essential. Their challenge is not just maintaining tradition, but making it meaningful to a generation raised on podcasts, YouTube clips, and celebrity activism. Meanwhile, stripped of titles and privileges, Harry and Meghan exist in an uncomfortable space. too famous to fade, too polarizing to reconcile. Meghan is expected to relaunch a new media venture in 2026, deliberately distancing from the royal narrative. But sources say branding consultants are already struggling with the question, without the Duchess title, what does she truly represent? Harry, meanwhile, remains adrift. Some say he's considering a return to veteran advocacy. Others whisper about speaking engagements, a second memoir, or even media projects tied to therapy. But one fact is undeniable. His identity as a prince is no longer his to wield. The crown has taken it back. For a man often described as reserved, Charles's final act may define him forever. Was it too harsh, or exactly what was needed? Historians will debate it. Commentators will dissect it. But those close to the king say he has found quiet resolve in the aftermath. He regrets the path that led here, said one senior aide, but he does not regret the decision. Inside the palace, the message is unmistakable. This was not punishment, it was preservation. And yet the ghost remains. For all the royal power, ceremony, and constitutional command, one truth persists. Charles cannot escape public perception. Influence is no longer shaped by declarations alone, it is sculpted by narratives. A tweet can undo a speech, a podcast can rewrite history, a single photo, edited or not, can shift global sentiment overnight. The monarchy has survived wars, abdications, assassination, plots, divorce, and scandal, but today it must survive something far harder to define: the blur between identity and brand, family and fame. When King Charles stripped Harry and Meghan of their royal status, he didn't just draw a line in history, he asked a question: what does it truly mean to be royal? And when the world is watching, judging, and moving faster than tradition can follow, the answer cannot come from the crown alone. The monarchy, for now, remains. But whether it thrives, evolves, or slowly recedes depends not just on bloodlines or palaces, but on trust, relevance, and the fragile art of letting go. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you think about the Sussex fallout and the monarchy's future.